Hello, my name is Geoffrey Carter and I'm chairman of the North Eastern Borders North region of the Battlefields Trust. Today I would like to tell you what is going on at Otterburn. In January 2019, a new landscape partnership was launched under the title of Revitalising Redesdale. Redesdale is a remote upland area of northwest Northumberland which adjoins the Anglo-Scottish border at Carter Bar. As a frontier and strategic corridor, Redesdale has been shaped by centuries of conflict since Roman times. This is border reiver country, where allegiances were to family rather than country or crown. The valley's history shaped the landscape and its people, resulting in a modern-day sense of wilderness and leaving a rich but increasingly threatened legacy of natural, built and cultural heritage. The launch of the partnership was the culmination of several years' work by a group of organisations, including the Battlefields Trust. The declared aim of the project is to celebrate, conserve and enhance Redesdale's rich cultural heritage, landscape and wildlife. The total budget for the project is £2.8 million, with £1.7 million coming from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. The Trust's involvement centres on one of the region's registered battlefields, Otterburn, fought on a moonlit night in August 1388 between a small Scottish army led by Lord James Douglas and a pursuing English force under the command of Harry Hotspur Percy and his brother Rafe, the two sons of the Earl of Northumberland. The battle is described in a number of contemporary sources, most notably at great length by the chronicler Jean Froissart, who said of it, "Of all the battles that have been described in this history, great and small, that of which I am now speaking was the best fought and the most severe." Yet, on the other hand, that redoubtable historian of battles A.H. Byrne considered that never was battle fought on English soil that had less effect on the fortunes of Old England. Now, some of you will have spotted that the arms of Hotspur in the image are wrong. His father had quartered his arms with those of the Lucy family on marriage, so Hotspur's arms were in fact these. Much has been written about the battle. Many theories have been put forward as to its precise location, the course of the engagement, and its significance, or lack thereof. The sources themselves are far from clear on much of the detail, and do not always tell quite the same story. The Revitalising Redesdale project provided an ideal opportunity to look again at this battle and to try to take the story forward by including the first professional archaeological investigation of the site. The purpose of this brief presentation is not to tell the tale of the battle, but to explain what the project aims to achieve and to summarise what has been done so far and what is planned over the next couple of years. The project is being led by the Battlefields Trust. I've taken on the role of Project Director as the Trust's contribution in kind, supported by another Trust member, local historian and author John Sadler, who has written extensively about battles in this region. Working closely alongside us, we have Karen Collins, Heritage and Engagement Officer for Revitalising Redesdale, and archaeologist Chris Jones, Historic Environment Officer for the Northumberland National Park Authority. In the final presentation document of Revitalising Redesdale's application for lottery funding, we titled our project The Battle of Otterburn, Conflict in a Landscape, and summarised its content as follows. A landscape archaeology project will seek to reconstruct the pre-modern landscape. We know, for example, that the road system was altered in the 18th century, and the course of the Rede may have altered in ways that affect the surrounding ground. The pattern of forest and vegetation may also have changed. By understanding the medieval landscape better, we will be able to use contemporary sources to review the location of the battle within the landscape. This methodology was used successfully at Bosworth. Alongside the landscape work, there will be a programme of intensive metal detecting in fields where fighting is believed to have occurred. This will again make use of battlefield methodologies developed at Bosworth, Towton and other pre-modern sites. Initial pre-project investigations have established that only some fields are suitable for this work. Many fields have not been ploughed in the modern era, which leaves medieval artefacts too deep for detection. The detecting will largely involve community volunteers trained and supervised by specialist battlefield archaeologists. Following all archaeological work, conservation management guidance will be prepared for landowners and other stakeholders. As technology in areas such as metal detecting improve, it is possible that artefacts not currently detectable may become so in the future, and management of the land will need to be informed of the need to accommodate this. To complement the archaeology, the project will undertake a full review of primary and secondary sources relating to the battle under the supervision of a specialist from the Battlefields Trust. Much of this work will be carried out by community volunteers with suitable training and guidance. This work will be combined with the archaeological findings to produce a full review of the battle and its location. It is possible that new light will be shed on both the location and the course of the battle. To complete the project and to leave a substantial legacy in Redesdale, the present visitor area will be redesigned and rebuilt to present the battle and the area to visitors in an imaginative way. The redesigned area will become a visitor hub, providing an important focal point within Redesdale. Within this part of the project, the Battlefields Trust will create an educational resource pack for use by schools locally and nationally who might wish to study the battle and its related history. This will form a part of a wider series of such packs that the Trust is creating for battles in the UK. At the time of speaking, May 2020, we're still in lockdown due to the COVID-19 virus, and this has reduced our ability to move ahead in various parts of the project. So now is a good time to take stock of where we are. The landscape archaeology is close to completion. Dr. Tracy Partider, who worked on the project to locate the battlefield at Bosworth, has led on this. Tracy has looked at a variety of sources, including some very old maps which are kept in the Northumberland County Archive. Some of these are works of art in themselves, hand-drawn and hand-coloured, as you can see from the image shown. A draft report has been completed, and we are filling in a few of the blanks as far as we can from what is available online. At present, we cannot visit university libraries or public archives, which is a bit of a drawback. As part of this exercise, we've been fortunate to have been given access to the work of Professor Diana Whaley, who is leading a project to digitise the Ordnance Survey namebooks for Northumberland. These documents are the notebooks compiled by the original OS surveyors as they toured the country in the second half of the 19th century to capture details of geographical features, villages, hamlets and individual buildings within each parish, including place names and the authority for their spelling from local people and written sources. Much of this information never made it onto the maps, but is of great value in understanding the fine detail of the landscape prior to the advent of modern machine-led farming practices. The books comprise the earliest surviving record of place names collected by the Ordnance Survey. The example shown here is Scottish. For England, only the books relating to the counties of Cumberland, Durham, Hampshire, Northumberland and Westmorland survived enemy action in 1940. Perhaps surprisingly, the battlefield at Otterburn has never been the subject of a systematic professional battlefield archaeological investigation. While preparing the final submission to the National Lottery, we commissioned an initial scoping study of the area to establish its suitability for such work. This was undertaken by Dr. Glenn Ford, who was, of course, responsible for locating the true site of the Battle of Bosworth, and who has worked with Tracy Partida and the Battlefields Trust on many projects. The study indicated a number of areas where further work would be reasonable. However, much of the area has not been subject to cultivation in the past 100 years, and in these areas any artefacts might lie at or beyond the limit of modern metal detectors. In this case, only very large medieval objects might be detectable. In addition, the soil pH measured was not conducive to the survival of ferrous objects, but not so aggressive as to suggest a problem for any non-ferrous objects. Following the scoping study, we appointed Glenn to act as senior battlefield archaeologist to the project. At the time of speaking, we're in the final stages of planning the field archaeology, but we're still unsure if this will be able to go ahead in 2020 due to the restrictions related to COVID-19. Because the land is in active agricultural use, there is only a limited time window when we can get into the necessary fields, and if this is missed, we will have to wait until 2021. In parallel to the archaeological work, we've been looking again at the primary and secondary sources for the battle. To aid us in this, we've recruited a group of local volunteers. So far, we have completed our group rereading of the primary sources. There are not many of them, but they're quite complex. The principal source, as I've mentioned, is Jean Froissart's Chronicle. Froissart's work is not without its problems. Chroniclers were not historians, as we would understand the term today. In addition, there is no complete modern translation of the Chronicles from the original Middle French into English, so we have had to look at what there is, plus modern French translations, and even the original Middle French. Of the other sources, we've also had to confront an important work written in the dialect spoken in the region in the 14th century, for which, again, there is no modern translation. Inevitably, all this work has thrown up a number of questions, and we are currently undertaking a very detailed critical analysis of the sources to see if they can shed any light on some of the key unanswered questions about the battle. In particular, the sources are almost entirely devoid of topographical detail, which might aid us in the field archaeology. So we are looking very closely at what there is, line by line and word by word in many cases, going back to the original language to ensure that nuances have not been lost in translation. We've also made a start on reading the main secondary sources with our volunteer group, but this has again been interrupted by the COVID-19 lockdown and will reconvene as and when possible. Ultimately, we will write up our version of the Otterburn story. The work on upgrading the visitor area has not yet started in detail, but we are already considering this in general terms and will develop it further over the next few months. A substantial amount of work is required to transform the current rather unappealing overgrown state of the area to somewhere that will attract visitors to stop and learn more about the battle and Redesdale in general. We have a number of design ideas to work with, and we want to end up with somewhere that will become an inviting and popular stopping point, both for local residents and for visitors to the area. In addition, we will produce an education pack for schools, colleges and youth groups once we have completed the archaeology and the work on the sources. This will follow a format that the Trust has used for many other battles and will incorporate material created by members who are experienced teachers of history for various age groups, as well as newly commissioned maps and illustrations. The image you can see was specially commissioned for our education pack on the 1640 Battle of Newburn Ford near Newcastle. We will also at that time be looking to train local volunteers to give talks and lead battlefield walks at Otterburn. There are a number of hotels and wedding venues in the area, and we are keen to be able to promote the story of Redesdale's heritage to outside visitors. This is one of the prime objectives of the whole Revitalising Redesdale project. So this is where we are today in May 2020. Much progress has been made, but like everyone else, we are frustrated that we cannot move ahead as quickly as we'd planned. If you would like to know more about the project, or to get involved if you are local to the region, then please feel free to email me at the address shown. Thanks for listening.